Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ford Hall Forum at Suffolk University. Before we begin, I have just a couple of announcements. This event is being video recorded, and it will be available for free on YouTube and iTunes in just a couple of weeks. The easiest thing to do is go to our homepage at www.fordhallforum.org and click on the YouTube button on the right. That will bring you to our YouTube channel, and it should show you what we've uploaded recently. When it comes time for questions and comments, I ask that all of the audience members speak directly into either that microphone or that microphone so that the rest of the audience can hear you and so that we can capture your voice on the video recording. And please remember that by speaking into the microphone, you are giving the Ford Hall Forum permission to record you. And now, unless you're live tweeting this, please turn your phone off. Great. The Ford Hall Forum would like to thank our generous sponsors, including, among others, the Lowell Institute, the Nellie Mae Education Foundation, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and our partners here at Suffolk University, which serves as the Forum's home base. The Forum also thanks our members, without whom we would not be able to provide you free and fantastic forums open to the public. If you enjoy this forum and you're not a member yet, please stop by the information booth in the lobby and become one. Tonight, for the Chinese American Dream, our moderator is Elif Armbruster. Elif Armbruster is an associate professor of English at Suffolk University. Her teaching and research interests focus on 19th and 20th century American literature, women writers, Latina literature, and studies in the American Dream. Armbruster published her first book, Domestic Biographies, Stowe, Howells, James, and Wharton at Home, in 2011, and is currently working on two new projects, a group biography of 3 prominent 19th century women related by marriage, and a study of Harriet Beecher Stowe in Fact and Fiction. She has edited the new editions of Stowe's best-selling Uncle Tom's Cabin and Wharton's novella, Summer, and has presented numerous papers in national and international conferences. Armbruster is the co-president of the New England American Studies Association and sits on the board of the 19th Century Studies Association. Please welcome our moderator, Elif.
Thank you to Jennifer for introducing me, and thank you so much to all of you for coming out tonight to join us at Suffolk University's C. Walsh Theater for this very exciting event. Anchee Min is the acclaimed author of 6 works of historical fiction and now 2 riveting memoirs. In 1994, she made her literary debut with a memoir entitled Red Azalea, which told the story of her growing up in China during the violent trauma of the Cultural Revolution. At 17 years old, Min was sent to a labor camp near the East China Sea, where she worked for 3 years before being cast in a propaganda film. Chairman Mao died before the film was completed, and Min was labeled a political outcast by association. In 1984, with the help of a friend who was already in the US, Min left China for America. Her new memoir, The Cooked Seed, just released on May 7th, details her story of leaving the shocking deprivations of her homeland without language, money, or a clear path, and arriving in the so-called Promised Land with less than $500 to her name and no idea of how to live here. It is my great honor and delight to introduce to you tonight my conversation mate on the stage, Miss Anchee Min. So welcome to Boston. So, to begin, I wanted to ask Anchee why she waited so long between the publication of her first memoir, Red Azalea, which came out in 1994, nearly 30 years before penning the second part of her story, The Cooked Seed. And you should all know that in between these 2 memoirs, Anchee published 6 novels, 6 works of historical fiction. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was, what sort of prompted this 30-year delay in continuing your story?
I did not intend to write it. After Red Azalea, I was offered a contract, and I tried, and it didn't come out right. I didn't know America at all. So I just went on with my life, which I figured I wanted to. One side is making living, still live at the bottom of American society, and then writing other subjects. I feel like I like to help America to know China, because I live in the neighborhood where people, teenagers will come to me and say, "Are you Chinese? Fuck you." And I thought they did not know they did not know China. That's why they have this attitude. I reminded myself, because I remember I hated Americans, and I thought American was a source of evil when I was in China, because I did not know America. Anyway, so after all these years, after all these books, it just gradually came to me that the life that I was living was good material, very powerful material. And by now, I made a living as an author for 25 years. So I kind of know the difference. When I wrote Red Azalea, I couldn't help it, because I was haunted by my past. I had to write it. Mm-hmm. But with this one, I kind of know, with Cook the Seed, I know my material. It's not about whether or not I write it. It's about if I could write it the right way. And I knew I have a lot of issues, and I couldn't do them. I need the courage to write it the way it should be written. And also I feel I need a perspective. So I needed time to develop my understanding of America, and so I could I know how to judge America. I didn't know enough. Now, after 30 years, I know.
Right, right. So can you talk a little bit about, there was the publication of Red Azalea in 1994, and then I believe you waited a number of years before publishing your first historical fiction, right, your first novel. So can you talk about what prompted you to then begin the writing of the novels?
It was China. It was China. Yeah. I guess once I developed this distance, it came naturally. I feel that I have this working attitude. As an immigrant, you come here to see, what can I contribute to this country? What does this country need? Yeah. It doesn't need one more labor, which I had been doing. And if I could do more, I found that the American practically doesn't know the China I know.
Right.
And it started with Madame Mao, become Madame Mao, because that's the part of life that I lived, and also my association with Mao and the Cultural Revolution. And then after that, become a national bestseller, and then I just move on to the Qing Dynasty, mm-hmm. which is the Opium War and 1900 invasion of China. And it explains why China panics. China, I think it's like, right now it's become Americans' partner and a rival. Mm-hmm. And we can no longer ignore China. And the understanding is so crucial for our own survival. So I feel that there is a place that I could be and just take advantage of what I know.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about the difference in terms of your authorial voice writing memoir versus novels? Is there a genre in which you feel more comfortable?
No. It has its own
pleasures and pains?
Correct. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. For example, writing historical novels, my biggest challenge was not about my understanding of China. I think growing up, raised in China, lived there for 27 years, I don't have to really think to know, to grasp what was behind the essence of certain actions, certain period of time, history, what the perspective. I know I was right, but in America, you don't assume. So I learned that. So I have to match the Chinese account with the research, with the American account, English account, German, France, and everybody else, and Japanese versions all have to match. One misstep, nowadays they send critics to you, they are experts. For example, with Becoming Madam Mao, the New York Times sent the journalist who sit down with me, whose first question was, I would like to talk to you about the three villagers, their pen name, the writers group who instigated the Cultural Revolution. And I'd like to know your view on former Mayor Peng Zhen. And I knew. I asked him, I said, where did you graduate? And he said, Columbia. I said, what was your major? He said, Cultural Revolution. Oh my God. And I feel so good. I feel I was in the right hand. And he loved the book, because I think what my way of doing it is that yes, you're reading a novel. The reason I choose to write a novel, because I can get away with lawsuit. But it's also, I understand it's a form of entertainment, but I want you to walk away with solid history of China. And as is, I found that a lot of Americans I know who have their own version of China, the China and Chinese culture. But the challenge is, if I write what I know, and it's so historical, in a way it's so thick and overwhelming, it might not get far. For example, the end of Madam Mao, that was the curse, because so many publishers won't take it. Mm-hmm. They say American readers will not enjoy the tragic ending of Madam Mao. So with this journalist, he actually he liked it, and he wrote the New York Times review and the magazine, and then overnight, it's just a success. Mm-hmm. So, and then with the next one, the Empress Orchid, the Last Empress, I mean, it is a personal highlight and glory when I attend the British Book Award for the category of reader's pick, the best read of the year. It was more, to me, was like I succeeded in conveying, without compromise much, without sacrifice my integrity of my material. Because I know as a novel, I'm giving the liberty to add some spicy stuff so easily. I mean, it's in the imperial concourse and everything, but I just have to make a decision, choose not to. With personal memoir, the cooked seed, I don't have to do the research. Right. The hardest thing is how to overcome this inbuilt Chinese woman's shame. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we'll talk about that. So getting to the cooked seed, you know, this beautiful book, and this sort of seeming insult of a title, you know, the cooked seed. Can you speak a little bit about that title and what it meant to you to choose that title?
The cooked seed means no chance to sprout. Publisher didn't like it at first, and they were afraid that it might be taken as a cookbook. I agree. I agree. Nowadays, every book they have to, it's the money. They put up the covers, and they have marketing team, and they vote. Did you see the UK cover for the cooked seed? Yeah. You can see it online, and it's ancheemin.com, and you see I put it side by side. It's different because UK publisher had a conflict with American publishers, even on a title picture, and both of my pictures. But the American publisher thought the UK picture was too depressing and too dark. And the UK publisher probably likewise think American cover is too friendly, sweet. And you know, Americans like something to be hopeful.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's another day. But anyway, so the cooked seed means I did not worth a spit back in China. In a way, it's true. In Chinese, I would say I was 淘汰. 淘汰 means just lost in the crack in the history, and we'll never get a chance to sprout. But in America, originally I was thinking they didn't like the cookbook, so a lot of titles thrown on the table. How about An American Miracle, or American 30 Years Immigrant Journey? And eventually, the UK publisher says, enough. We are going to go ahead and publish the cooked seed, because the title just grows on us. And especially, it was picked by BBC for the book of the week. And originally, they were going to publish it with American, like in May this month. And for some reason, because the pick of BBC, they postponed to publication to July 4th, the American Independence Day. They're gonna broadcasting UK, BBC, 52 English-speaking countries. But the funny thing to me was that their description, I don't know how to translate, but I translate in Chinese, it's like Anchee Min, 出了虎口又入了狼窝. Anybody speak Chinese here? Yeah. Can you help me explain?
Just when you drop off the bad things and you go to another worse things.
Yeah. I escaped a tiger's mouth only to throw myself in the lion's den. So they say tiger's mouth is China and come to America. So I understand that between UK and America, there has something going on. It's exciting to see. But that's off the topic now. Sorry.
But it's interesting. I mean, I was really curious about the two differing cover pages. I mean, they're radical. You know, if you go look on your own to your website and see. You know,
yeah, but with the UK cover, you can't put in Costco. This is Costco loves it.
Right.
Cover.
Right.
So
right.
For me, I think as long as it's there and you put a Costco and be sold with the soaps and toilet paper, you know my passion about toilet paper.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, it's so funny. It's hope springs eternal, you know, with the green and the behind the window, and but I know that there's sort of that double meaning there in the cooked seed, right? Because you ultimately were not cooked in any way, but blossomed fully. So I was wondering if you could speak to ways in which you use Chinese language to sort of penetrate the Chinese way of thinking, or use sort of the Chinese way of thinking to your advantage in your writing.
Well, that's how you would survive in American publishing business. I mean, commercial publishing. Anybody here interested in writing? Yeah, okay. In the past, the publisher would read about 10 pages of your manuscript, the agent, and well, the publisher will not publish anybody who's not represented by agent. Agent will not take anybody who's not published.
That's right.
And the only way to go, and I ask the agent, so how could I get you? And they say, go competition. Just remember, United States will not miss anybody who is a gold medal material. I guess you just have to have that, tell you that, yourself that. I believe everybody is a book. It's just, you have to know the trick how to compete. I mean, there is certain thing person need to know. And I think as a survivor, I understood, once I understood that, I know that in the past, they read 10 pages. Then they read 3 pages. Now then they read 3 paragraphs, first paragraph. And now they only read first sentence. to decide the fate of your manuscript. So don't save your the best in the last. Won't work that way. I mean, for Chinese, I think I was trained in the United States. I was forced to learn this lesson because I couldn't survive without English. Mm-hmm. And in the American classroom. Mm-hmm. And beside my way of thinking was horrible. I got Fs, straight Fs. And then I know, I won't survive. Then I figured that it's a way of thinking. Just remember, my name in Chinese is Anchee Min. In Chinese translation, Min Anqi. So everything goes the opposite. So in Chinese writing, the best article, for example, on drinking water, it would be rewarded to a person who never mentioned, I want to drink water, but have the reader says, here, your bottle of water. But in America, the opposite. You will say, I like to drink a cup of water because weather is hot, because I'm an animal, and animal dies thirst, and the earth is scorched and cracking. And you say, I need a cup of water first. But then in writing, and that backfires. In language, I understand. If I go, say, writing about Madame Mao, the first sentence, I say, what does history recognize? It's a different opinions. And the winner often gets to the say. If I say that straightforward, and then I will be in the trash can. So how will I pursue it and to translate that and to apply what I know, the Chinese way? So I say, what does history recognize? A play of cooked spirals, 100 mouths. It was that line, got that contract. So I think the title, same thing, Cooked Seed. And you say, huh? Cooked what? I say, oh, cooked seed doesn't sprout. So it's a treat of mind.
Right.
And in all my writing, I apply that. And for example, it's a Chinese way of thinking. I think it's ridiculous when Americans say, the world says, somebody like Mao, if you put Mao on trial, you never get evidence. He will never say, let's start a cultural revolution, let's kill millions of people. He would say, what he would do was he'd go on the mountain and he would admire the pagoda that has 999 Buddha statues on it. And he would say, what makes the sculptor keep going and working in such a dangerous spot? He might fall, he might falling. It's the fear. The fear, because of fear, he needs protection. With each Buddha statue he carved, he gained protection. And the Mao's assistants say, our chairman is in fear. What drove him? His political rivals. Mao is ready for the Cultural Revolution. That's how China works.
So in the Cooked Seed, you detail this unbelievable journey of trying to acquire English and skills and speaking and writing in English. And just since you mentioned the publishing world, can you just talk for a few minutes on how you managed to get your first memoir, Red Azalea, published and what that process was like for you? With the numerous versions and...
I was caught at the custom when I entered the United States. And all I could say was, thank you. I mean, normally the immigration officer says, welcome to America. And then I say, thank you. Uh-huh. And he examined me. After a few questions, I say, thank you. After the third question, he pointed at the room.
Well, I remember you wrote, he asked you, what are you here to do? Or what are you here to study? And Anchee said, thank you.
Yeah, because I couldn't understand a thing. So when I started the college, it's amazing. The teacher says, Miss Min, here is not a language school.
Right.
And I feel so guilty. I was wasting everybody's time. But again, that's, I think, motivated me. So in the English 101 writing class, all I remember was like, first class textbook it's called 8 Modern Essays. The first person was Virginia Woolf. Yeah. And I counted the page of her essay. And the one page had on average 200 words, and each line 13 words. Out of 13, 10 out of 13, I have to look up in the dictionary. And so that's how I just kept going. I guess if you're desperate enough, you learn Chinese in 3 months. Believe me, if you were in my shoes, I really believe that. Have you ever seen deer got caught? When they got caught and they jump, little deer, they can jump like 10 feet, 20 feet. They just, whoa, it's a miracle. So I think God bless you with these kind of survival skills. Anyway, so I remember I standing by the elevator at the school. We had like 12 stories. I asked the person who entered the elevator, which floor? If the person says 2, and I'd step back. If the person says A, I come in. I say, can you tell me if this have been or had been? So this is how I learned English, just phrase by phrase. Eventually became the manuscript of Red Azalea.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah, and also I have to thank the teacher. Teacher says, Anchee Min, you are such a lousy writer, but you have such a wonderful material. And I say, what kind of good, I'm a lousy writer. Who do you think a good writer I should model after? And he turned around, here's the book. That's his book. I thank him because if he give me like a Margaret Duras, I probably would never develop the courage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One thing that's so remarkable about The Cooked Seed is how unbelievably fresh the stories are. And, you know, it's so easy to forget that these events transpired 20 years ago. You know, for example, that account of arriving and being sent to the little brown room and, you know, trying to enter the country really, for me, read as if it just happened. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the immediacy or the freshness with which so much of the book is written, and just sort of talk to us a little bit about the process of, you know, memory and how that functioned in the writing of this book. Did you have to actively plumb the recesses of your mind, or was it really as if...
It's there. I think a trauma, if you're trauma, that these images would never leave you. It's just images, especially when I came without language. I mean, every day I look at the mirror. You see here? It's the scar. And in China, the socialism, when kids I had a zit here, and it grew the size of a grape. And my mother had tuberculosis, and she was in black clothes all the time. And I said, Mom, why do you wear black clothes? She said, oh, if I don't wake up tomorrow morning, I will be in white clothes. So she wouldn't take care of me. So the kindergarten took care of me, and they sent me to the hospital and performed a surgery. And my mother opened the bandage. You saw big, about 2-inch long scar here, bloody. And my mother said, you just ruined my daughter's look. And the government says, you should be lucky you didn't pay the hospital fee. Look for a girl in the proletarian society means nothing. And every day for the rest of 50 years, I faced that. So I don't have to think about this. And also the trauma of the image that my mother was down here, try to push the neighbor away. My neighbor was on top of her, holding a scissor, try to poke her, and then one stroke, the blood just seep open like flowers on my mother's face. I froze there, and that memory just burned into it. It was just all about toilet. Yeah. And the neighbor wants to. It's the beginning of the Cultural Revolution. So what Cultural Revolution means Chinese people, like my level, was about democracy. Means anybody is allowed to do anything you want to. If you don't have a toilet, you can grab your neighbor's toilet. If your neighbor says no, you can poke her with a scissor. So this is the image. And also, my moment of standing terrifying in front of the American consulate, try to get my visa. I remember the thinking that I would not let the Consul General interrupt me. If she or he did, she's gonna find out I don't speak English. And that moment, and all these moments, it just came to me, and also the terrible moments that I have to identify my labor camp mate who drowned in the water. She was the person who sang my motherland. Mm-hmm. And the person who brought joy to us, and it was us who murdered her, basically. So all these images was not difficult. And difficult was about something like a very personal, how do you come here alone, knowing nobody, and I'm like a young woman. And we are so alone, Christmas and Thanksgiving. Your body crave out, want to be touched. You imagine a man. And by accident, I just stomped into this dirty video store by a Korean laundry people who opened. And they recommended the porno movie. And that became my boyfriend for many years. And I think I struggled. I think you don't see in normal immigrant mothers, the second generation record about their mother. There's not at this extent, because mother, I know I would never share that with. It's a crushing loneliness. It's the kind of loneliness that tears your soul apart and drove you in the middle of the night, and you just feel like it's just, you feel sick and ill and madness. And you just feel like it's the sense of hopelessness and helplessness. And shame was overwhelming. But then you have to struggle on, because if I don't, how would I rescue my family back home? So this is the experience. I thought as a writer, I have the distance. I know that I live this life, but I don't own this life as an American writer. I feel that if I can make use of myself to contribute, this is precisely what I ought to do it.
Right.
And it was my daughter who told me, Mom, if you want to leave me anything, leave me your story. But I want a no sugarcoating, airbrushed version. So that really kicked. Totally.
Well, you've written here, I believe, that you wrote to purge yourself of your ghosts, right? So that you yourself did not become a ghost. So clearly, writing was one mechanism that sort of helped you cope with these experiences of your past. I was wondering if there are any other mechanisms or pastimes that you have cultivated to deal with some of these memories. I'll just say as an aside that in doing my research, I found the Wikipedia page on you. Mm-hmm. And it identifies Anchee first as a painter, and then as a musician, and then as a photographer, and fourth as an author. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if those pastimes were perhaps related to, the cultivation of coping mechanisms.
Painting, I grew up painting murals. So that was the one I got accepted by the School of the Art Institute in Chicago. And they rejected fine artists from China Academy. And they thought my work, which Chinese consider lousy, which I consider lousy myself, but my mother says, I see death and craziness, madness in your paintings. You sure? And then Art Institute people thought I had potential, rightly so. So when I came here, since I didn't speak English, I can't even get a job as a waitress. I go to I knock on door-to-door Chinese restaurant and say, do you need a dishwasher? And they say, no, they don't want a woman as a dishwasher. But I eventually got a job of painting on fabric paint on the woman's underwear for painting 50 cents per flower. So that's a survival. It's my graveyard shift. Mm-hmm. I come back from the restaurant. Eventually, I got the waitressing job. And 12 o'clock a.m., I start working all the way to 3 p.m. And so painting is my way of survival. Photography was that I thought, how will I make a living? So I once saw the magazine on it's like photos of my friend Joan Chen.
Oh, right.
You know, she's actress and director today. Beautiful. And I think she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And I said to her, if you can give me a chance, I can film you the way that American photographer would not. It's a different way. I believe I could do that. So she honored me time. So eventually somebody in China, in America, gallery loved it so much they published a collection of my photographs of Joan. It's called Xiezhen. It's like her. I can make the naked body look very sensuous, but I had to deal with her. Photograph her. She's like. But so that's another way I approached. Musician, I think I was so Americanized after 3 years being in America, and I couldn't find a job in America anyway. I went back to China. I told my father, I want to promote education in China. I want to bring back what I know about America, and the best way to do it is through music video. So I composed music and American pop music way. And actually, I got a contract from Shanghai, China Record in Shanghai. And then it was when Red Azalea was publishing at the same time, and the TV crew came and take all the doing all the profile, CCTV, Shanghai TV. Eventually, a boss, top boss, and they say it was Jiang Zemin, but I can't confirm that, asked the crew, the 33 major media newspaper who reported me, any of you journalists read original Red Azalea? And when no one said yes, everything's canceled. So I contacted the boss of the record company. I said, with the media, we are forbidden from promoting Anchee Min. So the top boss says, we don't have to be enemy with Anchee Min, but we don't have to promote her either. So with that sanction, I knew that my music composition is not go far. And besides, my father said, dare you come back to China. Remember, you once denounced your own favorite teacher as an American spy? You're going to be denounced to yourself one day. So go back to America and make it your life there. Wow. Thank you, my father. Wow. So I came back and picked my last option as an author.
Wow. The Cook Seat is filled with such extraordinary occurrences. I'm not sure how many of you have had a chance to read it yet, but from arriving in Chicago with barely those 3 words of English, being raped by one of your roommates, buying and renovating the dilapidated tenement, trying to escape that very punishing marriage. And, for me, it was unbelievable to read and to even believe so much of it had really happened to you. So I was just wondering if you could speak about survival, and if you had to attribute your survival to, say, 1, 2, or 3 characteristics within yourself, what would you say? What would you attribute that survival to?
The word that came to my mind was American visa and the green card.
That was the #1 thing on your mind?
Mm-hmm. Right now. I think when I was blessed with that, there's nothing I can't conquer.
Wow.
And I think it depends on how you look at it. Nowadays, I think so many people struggle to to write and to be an author, I just read some of the Chinese youth, because I feel like for 30 years, I'm the only person, almost only person, I mean, there are a few great writers from mainland China writing in English. And I felt that so I was curious about the new writers, young writers, and I found the writing so beautiful. But they have the weak muscle. I think because their life is so sweet.
Right, right.
So my life, it turned out, I never would have wanted to wish my life on anybody. I mean, that I'm not mentioning life as a woman in China, my generation, my mother's or my grandmother's generation. That's why I cried when I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter, a girl. Mm. I didn't want a daughter because I did not want her life to mirror mine. As simple as that. I just feel that I want a child, secure my child's privilege, a life. But the perspective was that as a writer, you can't ask for better material and the way that you lived it. Because it's not the hardship I was afraid of. My fear was not the hardship, it's the permanence of it. Mm. Mm-hmm. So when you live it, you did not know that you're going to have it tomorrow, that you're going to make it in America. And every letter I sent home, every letter immigrants sent home was, I'm doing well, I'm doing great in America. That's why you see all these photos I put out, because you see me, posing by the Lake Michigan, wearing this dress borrowed from John Chen, and with a sailing boat behind me. It's not fake, it's all fake. But it's different from it. When you're a writer, you go to, say, you wanted to investigate. You're a journalist, you want to write about peasants' life, poverty. It's different, I know the difference. It's that fear. Mm. Mm. It's very different, because you can get on the boat, get on the helicopter and leave. And I couldn't. Deportation, the day of my visa expiration is behind me, every step of the way. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, on that note, I wanted to ask you about this amazing quotation in the book where you write that American youth suffered a different form of deprivation, which might include the lack of suffering itself. Do you remember? Mm-hmm. And I just thought that goes hand in hand with what you're saying. If your story is too sweet, it's not as good. But could you just comment on how suffering builds character, or even the differences that you see in American youth?
This is for me, it's a learning process. I was too quick to judge. When I just landed in America, I say, why are you committing suicide? The act was taking place in my classroom.
Right.
And I thought, you have the citizenship, you speak English. So I was too quick to judge. Until I lived my daughter's life. Mm. I raised her, and she was 16 years old. She was so depressed. She said, Mom, I know I'm not broken, but I feel broken inside. I was terrified. And I did not understand the suffering. And I think I was wrong to say that it's just that they have their own sufferings. It's just kind of suffering I can't comprehend. And I comprehend my own way anyway. And that was not justice.
That's interesting. I mean, I'll just sort of, I'm noticing the time, so we want to have plenty of time for questions. So I'll just ask you a final question about the differences between, say, your youth and your daughters. And, have you lived the American dream now that your daughter is, on her way to being a senior at Stanford University? Is this the American dream that you've achieved?
Yeah, I think the American dream that come true for me was that I got American citizenship. And I was allowed to compete on the stage, a literal stage. And I'm very aware of there's so many great writers, the distance between a writer behind me and it's just only finger length difference. And the competition is just that fierce. I think I'm the type of person who won't give up. And with my daughter, my gratitude was she would never, just like me, she would never survive in China with her genes and she was considered slow-mo. I was shocked when she was 7 years old. The report came in from the school, American public school, said she was below national average. I couldn't believe it. Anchee Min's daughter, below national average. So that really makes me sit down with her and to see what was really wrong with her math and science and English. And I thought it was the American public schools teachers. Because we were poor, and Lorian's used to changing school. In her elementary school all these years, like 6 times, every school's public schools teacher nurtured her, the self-confidence that she was allowed to take her time and to work hard we together, our motto was, how could I make it right? How could I fix it? I know the mistake is given. People like us are not super smart, but you're giving a chance. So the letter, I think, that got her into Stanford was that one of the teachers wrote that Lorian might not be the smartest student in my class, but she sure was the hardest working kid in my class for 26 years. And I think that in China, people like us will be cooked seed, swept away. And here, the respect of you as a human, the human value here, that it's just in the society in general, in America general, I think it's, forgive China for the way that we have to deal with so many people. The college job was to try to get rid of as many as possible. You can't really have a human heart and to perform your job. But in America, the society is healthy in that direction. And of course, we see the dark side as a living the bottom. My biggest challenge was with Lorian when I talked to her about the people who milk the system. And when she said to me, the thing that I terrified was, she says, Mom, it's not the end of the world to be poor, okay?
Wow.
And I try to say, you see the wrong thing. It's not meant to be. It is the end of the world. And she says, I just want to have a normal American childhood. Jamaica is to be on Section 8, and she's considered poorest person in America. And her kids have their own room, their own computers, games, toys, stuffed animal packed from floor to ceiling. Why I have to be, Jamaica's kids did not have to carry concrete bags day in, day out. Jamaica's kids can have friends, weekends, and parties, and they don't have to work in the sewage and toilets and get this stink like I do. Even a bottle of shampoo cannot get rid of it. All my asking is, I don't think I'm asking too much. And her fight with me. And that was my toughest moment.
Well, I would love to keep asking Anchee questions, especially on that note of motherhood, but I think it's time to open the floor. So yeah, if you want to line up to ask questions, we'll be happy to take them. And if there aren't that many, I will continue to ask questions.
Anchee, shortly after the end of the Cultural Revolution, we had Nixon's opening to China. Do you remember what you were thinking back then as to prospects for the future? Things might improve greatly or any change for the better? And when Mao died in '76, did you celebrate that? That he was finally out of the picture?
We have to pretend crying. sad. So I remember I was just going this and pretend crying, and then I opened Peekaboo, and I saw Joan Chen was doing the same thing, you know, other kids doing the same thing. You'll be arrested if you celebrate. No.
So
we are not trained to imagine our future. Future did not belong to us. We each were trained to think we are boat on communist running machine. We did not belong to ourselves. The only thing that changed the whole thing was, for me personally, was when TV clip, I think it was in the late 1970s, 79, and China, our neighborhood had this 9-inch blackened TV. Somebody shipped it from Hong Kong. The neighbor was afraid if she watched alone, it's got everybody be her enemy. So she says, I donate time. Certain times, so the neighbor watched together, 300 of us. And that night was news. American worker demonstrating in Chicago, in front of Chicago City Hall. And I remember the jaw-dropping moment was that I found that it's shock to see that American workers, proletarians, are not what I had imagined them to be, in rags. They wear better clothes than us, and they're not skeletons, they are fat. So if this is wrong, because we grew up believing that we're saving starving American children. Now I know your parents told you, finish your food. Children in China are starving. We were busy saving you. So if this could be a lie, what else? So that's a revolution, silent revolution.
could you say a few words about the current leadership in China? Do you think they have malevolent intentions or benign with respect to the rest of the world and their goals, desires?
I think they are doing a great job. They are all a bunch of engineer people. I think that it's not easy to feed 1.5 billion population. It's just very difficult. And I think they're doing the best. I'm actually worried about the next generation. The current generation, they are people like me. I am not surprised at China's progress because we have gone cultural revolution, we're politically mature. If China did not know what they want in the future, China definitely knew what it did not want, the dictatorship or anything that they experienced. It's just the next generation, the generation who are, I called, deprived from the knowledge, anything about the Cultural Revolution, the in-depth study of it. And that is a cancer, and that's a true deprivation in education and humanity that might lead to trouble.
My question has to do with, I guess writing from the margins, representing a minority group, not only as a woman, as a Chinese American, as an immigrant. Do you feel a burden to represent your group as opposed to just representing yourself? And how do you negotiate that? When is it just your responsibility to tell your own story, and when is it your responsibility to tell a larger story?
I never think I was, I considered representing anybody, or I was a writer for that matter. I didn't think, I actually said to my daughter, I say, hey, Lorianne, I've been making living for 25 years, so I should be a legit writer. when I write, I think about if you want to publish, you'll be in the competition. You just have to be the best. And you have to offer the authenticity and originality in terms of creative. It's a process, and you have to see how yourself jump over that bar and visualize it. And then you work on your muscles. And I think that's how I did it. And I thought, okay, I cannot be Virginia Woolf. I cannot be Michelangelo. So maybe I can be a Vincent van Gogh, a different kind. So I work on the different kind. I think this is America. That you can succeed in every unique way. And I think that's how America embraced the individuality and the creativity. And only in America you can succeed. And I figure, okay, my writing muscle, my strength is I'm going to combine the Chinese classics, which failed in America, in the Western market for all these years, and the Tang Dynasty poems, Song Dynasty verses mixed with Henry Miller's Tropical of Cancer and Anais Nin's sensuality and sexuality. And to China, Chinese writing is very sensuous. And I think it's so luxury in the language. Actually, I went back after I figured copying Virginia Woolf is going to lead me nowhere. I can never sound like Virginia Woolf. So I went back to my own language. And that's 5,000 years of originality there. I think it's just the eye. You have to have the eye to see it. And you have to know enough to be able to have the sight.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to that, you write in the Cook Seat about the moment when you realized your calling, right? And I quote Anchee, she writes, "Instantly I knew what I would do for the rest of my life. I wanted to introduce China and its people to Americans." So you did clearly have a very, big mission in mind, right?
Yeah, yes. Yes, I think I didn't think about, I would not let myself to think, what if I fail? Just like I know that at the time, it started with my visa. It started with my passport. I went into the room with the party boss and I already quit my job. And my parents so fearful for me. I just thought, I just keep jumping the hurdle in front of me and not looking back. I think it's a way of concentrating. I'm forced, but survival is about focusing. If you go to the train station to pick up your mother, you don't, in your memory, you don't see anybody else. You're just expecting that image to appear. And that's all I see. And then when I get the passport, I was just, when the boss asked me, do you intend to promote revolution in America? If I had to lie, I lied. I say yes. And he says, what's the difference between Albania and America? And my mind just raced so quickly. What does that mean? And he says, are there proletarians in America? And I say, yes. And he recited Mao's poem, the top couplet, 星星之火. Then I went, 可以燎原. And that's how I got passport. With the visa, I didn't know English, so I had the person translate it for me and fill out the form. English language, poor, average, good, excellent, of course, excellent. I went in and just recite that. You come to America thinking, if you think you're going to be excellent and you're going to make it, so there's nothing to lose. It's a nothing to lose attitude.
Right. Good.
Thank you so much for telling your story. I have a simple question with an underlying question. So my simple question is, has your books been translated into Chinese? And so my underlying question is, do you think in Chinese when you write and then you kind of write in English? I ask that because I'm a 1.5 generation Chinese American. My parents are survivors from the Cultural Revolution. I was lucky enough to be born in Hong Kong, moved to America when I was really young, so I grew up here. And like many of my peers, I want to rediscover my Chinese side and my heritage. And I'm sad to say I'm not fluent in Chinese, so even if your books were translated in Chinese, I won't be able to read them. That's why I'm so grateful that you do tell your stories in English, so that for young people like me who grew up here, we can read your voice and begin to imagine what our parents have gone through, because they don't want to tell us a lot of their suffering. And I know compared to them, I suffer very little. So reading your stories is one of the ways that I can try to understand what they went through. So I guess I want to ask whether it's possible going forward to also have understanding within the Chinese American community when it comes to China. I think a lot of Chinese Americans, ironically, don't understand China because we grew up here. We know America is a great country, so we don't want to go back, or we don't want to think about that distant land.
But the best moments, my best moments, I feel like I was writing in Chinese. At the beginning, it was the opposite. I tried to write English, but I couldn't help it because I did not know English. So I compose in Chinese, my details notes in Chinese. My husband comes and says, I can't see anything in the mirror because it's all your Chinese notes. And then I execute in English because English is like, to me, is like a music. And I feel free. At that time, my Chinese I didn't really have Chinese. I know the characters, but my education is the Cultural Revolution, Mao brainwashing, Mao quotation. It's a suppression. It's the languages of oppression, so and the self-censorship. So I write in English, but every detail, the story, the images are Chinese. And today, it's American life. I communicate with my daughter in English, but I guess the kids grow up and they speak faster and faster and faster, and my translator goes slower, slower, slower. So eventually we couldn't understand. I say, 听不懂啊. I say, I don't get it in Chinese. And then she started to talk in her funny Chinese, and she can talk, and she cannot. She doesn't read and write, and her language is kind of a strange combination because I didn't have money to get her to go to Chinese language school. So she learned from two sources. One source was Chinese propaganda film and North Korea propaganda film that we watched during 70s, 80s, and I wanted to have my daughter learn the Chinese culture. And then she was watching, and I said, that's your Chinese lesson. She watched it. We were like landlords and fixing the toilet and the apartment. And she says, Mom, this is propaganda. Every landlord in your film, in Chinese film or North Korea film, landlord bully the tenants and rape the tenants. And you are a real life landlord. Look at you. And look at me, look at my life. And we said, but it's Chinese, not my purpose, right? And then I show her every Chinese New Year, I try to have this comedian, Chinese humor. So she would watch all these funny things. So she learned. Anybody watch CCTV? Yeah, 你知道那个陈佩斯吃面 ？Yeah. 他有一段就是这样，他说，乡亲们啊 ，it's about China's actually the little improvisation in China. CCTV Chinese people love to watch. Entire billion people, Chinese New Year, and it's reflecting the current life about how parents get rich. And this parent was counting his money. He says, "I've made so much money, I didn't know how to spend it." And then he says $1, $2, and Loyan goes, 哎呀，这么多的钱啊！我王老五从来没看那么多的钱，哎，1块、2块、3块，就是。So she goes like that, and that's her Chinese. And then I taught her the Chinese peasant opera, and that she sang, and she sang it in the original taste, and because she says, "Mom, why did it sound like a duck?" And I said, "Don't mind it, just sound like a duck." So she sounded like a duck. She says, 树上的鸟儿成双对. And use this nasal voice. Oh my God. And she went to China. The Chinese opera troupe says, my God, you're from America? I've seen so many Chinese American kids, they don't even speak Chinese. And you can go, 成双对. And she got so inspired and her Chinese grew better and better. And then when I lost my English, and she come and she wants to convey something in her funny Chinese, but it works.
Oh my gosh. There's more of that on Anchee's website. There's videos you can watch and experience this.
Thank you. So are your books in Chinese?
Huh?
Are your books in Chinese?
My books?
Yeah.
No, it's banned in China. You sure you wanted to hear that? Because it's not decent.
Well, my question is, I just want my parents to read your latest memoir, just because I think a lot of Chinese immigrants don't have the luxury to hear that story in their own language.
But I don't know if I could put these on air. For Red Azalea, Chinese critics, the people says, Anchee Min, through Red Azalea, she took off her pants and invite the Westerner to screw her. I could bear that. I could understand that because they feel that it's family laundry. But it's my parents, my sibling, they live in China, they can't bear that. And with Cook the Seed, it was just last week, was on NPR Weekend Edition Sunday broadcasting, and 2 days ago just appeared on Chinese Global News. The reviewer wrote that as usual, I woke up and then my family turned on NPR Weekend Edition. I thought it's Mother's Day. I thought I was expecting a special program and good about mother-daughter. I was surprised. Here comes on Anchee Min. I don't have to read her book. I didn't read her book, but I knew instantly why she got the royal treatment with American media, such a prestige and privilege. It's because she badmouthed China. So you see how my book will have trouble in China. However, with this one, I got some people in San Diego and California. They came because the Chinese immigrant story. Women come and cry, and they see it's a mirror image of their stories. So there's hope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Anchee Min. My name is Douglas. I'm from China as well. And I really appreciate you just to sing the Anhui opera with your nasal accent, because that's where my hometown.
So he's from the province where this Huang Mei Tune I just sang. He's coming from.
Yeah.
So he know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Thank you.
So I just want to appreciate how much you said about Cultural Revolution. And
How come your English is so good? You're from China.
I watch a lot of Hollywood movies and TV shows.
That's
so.
what you did too. Well, she watched Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 27 years old.
I watched Everybody Loves Raymond when I was 9.
Oh my gosh. Oh, he's way
See
ahead
how
of you.
China's changing.
Yeah, see, so that's why
We see the one spot and we know the leper.
Yeah, I really feel grateful that my parents can, make me suffer less than your generation, and my parents can afford to send me to an English school when I was 7 years old. So I grew up in China and just came to the United States last year.
That's amazing. Wow.
So you see the generation is changing.
I'm so happy for China.
Thank you. So I'd like to share anecdotes is about my grandfather, and it kind of like what he suffered in Cultural Revolution kind of reminds me of what you just mentioned about your mom. And he has a friend who used to wash vegetables near a river nearby in front of his apartment. And one day, accidentally, he sat on a chair with the newspaper on it. And on the newspaper, there's Chairman Mao's picture. And he sat on a picture. So you know what happened later on? He was killed by the government.
Did you read Red Azalea?
No, I didn't.
You didn't read Red Azalea?
No.
Okay. In Red Azalea, I wrote that my mother, because our family is so poor, we can't afford toilet papers. My mother accidentally took the newspaper with her when she needed to poo, and she wiped the paper with her behind with Mao's picture on it.
Right.
She was almost denounced as a reactionary, and I think that was my first attempt to save my mother. So I wrote her self-reflection paper for her to read in front of the public. And I said that she was having tuberculosis and blood pressure, and she couldn't think straight, and all these things. Wow, that's good to know. So again, I think that China has gone through this.
Right.
The Chinese does not want that.
Yeah.
Ever.
So
thank you.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for sharing the story. You're very brave and bold. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you folks familiar with Amy Chua's work, The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother? Yeah. I just put this question quickly for Anchee. One of the reviewers said that the cooked seed was what the Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother wanted to be. Do you remember that review? It was in Entertainment Weekly. Not exactly, not the New York Times, but.
Well, the Chicago Tribune did the same thing. It says, compared to the Tiger Mother, Tiger Mother compare the Cooksey Anchee Min is a pussycat. So what does exactly mean? I mean, the two reviewers.
That you were.
No, the first one, that your word.
Well, so no, I just wanted you to, the cooked seed is what the Tiger Mother wanted to be.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it.
But I wanted to see if you wanted to comment on that, but we have another question.
I'll get to you as soon as, just a second. The Chinese women discuss it among themselves. I was normally antisocial, but with this book tour, and in Palo Alto, I met how many? About 50 Chinese women. So I asked them about the Tiger Mother. I say, I just wanted to know your view and if we share the same view. And uniformly, we share the same view. We think that this is not Chinese. Because a Chinese mother will never say in public or on the paper or even to themselves that my method raising my kids is the best way. It's just not Chinese. Second, as Chinese, living in China for 27 years, we know we're not smart. We're dumb. If we're not dumb, you look at the Opium Wars. Since 1644, 2 Opium Wars, and then 13 nations invade China. The British tried to force the opium into the throat of Chinese and succeeded. And Chinese was brought to its knee, China brought to its knee and surrendered. And then 1937, Japanese invasion, rape of Nanking. If we were smart, how would we let that happen? And the famous thing was in China, the imperial government says, we're too civilized to be invaded. And then the Cultural Revolution. And the billion people put up with Mao if we were so smart. So the conclusion was, we were not smart, we didn't raise smart kids. And now here comes somebody, and the media call her a Chinese mother. We can't recognize that. And all the Chinese women resented. We Chinese women, people see us and say, are you Tiger Mother? It's just, it's too far from us.
Yeah.
But I think maybe you probably comprehend differently than us. Make me understand. Professor?
I'll defer.
Okay.
Well, I was thinking, too, along the lines of your daughter's upbringing. You said she had the same teacher for 26 years?
No.
Oh.
She had different teachers.
Okay.
And this teacher who wrote her the recommendation letter to Stanford, we did not know. After she was accepted, the teacher told me what she wrote. She says, I taught 26 years, and Lorian was the student I had been waiting for to write a letter like this.
And did she go to public schools?
Yes.
In Chicago? Where
no,
they closed 56.
Chicago and Los Angeles and East Bay, San Francisco. Because I have this idea that I think she needs to live, to be trained to know reality. If she wants to serve America in the future, she must know the average Americans.
How did you get acquainted with America, or why? What motivated you to come to America? Did you read American authors at all in China?
No, I read all Chinese authors. After Mao died, September 9th, 1976, China, so the China started to change. October 8th, Madam Mao was denounced and overthrown as gun of 4, and 2 months later, I was denounced. And for the next 8 years, Deng Xiaoping took over, and he opened the door to China. It was the first time Western books came in, and the Chinese authors, they read the translation, and they wrote, a lot of them, they used the Western method and used their stories. So my literary foundation is that I read all these Chinese authors. I could name 20 of them. I admire so much. Still today, they remain my rocks and my foundation. And they are much better writers than me. So it was, I never read American books, but I read some translations. By the time I read Hemingway and Charlotte Bronte in original English, I was in my 40s. Mm-hmm. So I think in a way it's good, because I think why I read it in Chinese and English, and when my age and my experience. So I was not a student, you see. That really, that enhances the reading experiences. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Have you started to read more American literature now?
You want the truth? It's so many I wanted to read. I'm in such a struggling because I don't read English. English is work, and I have to do my work. I drive myself in a car to a park where the ladies' restroom is. I sit in the car, I read the book, because I have to know my competition and know my material. So I will read a half hour and take a jog in the park, come back. So it's a
chore.
It's a chore. And then when I went back, and then my nighttime, I read Chinese. But I want to stay in touch with all your great writers. So I cheated. I went to China, I went to Shanghai, the translation house, they publish in Shanghai. I can buy them at the Book City. Oh my God. And they are American translations. Oh my gosh. Then I buy, so my neighbors found in my trash can, just dozens, trash cans of the translated books all over the world, the best books, but only in Chinese. Now, recently, I find that I'm ahead of my translators. Oh. And I can't stand the way they translate. The traditional classic translator, like a Fuller, their generation, it's an art. Nowadays, it's capitalism, and they would probably hire somebody, graduate student, they translate in a really, they are into money. Yeah. I just learned my favorite writer, one of my favorite writers, Amy Tan, yeah. Her book was translated by a Chinese writer. I got suspicious. It says, translate and rewrite. So it's, how could you do that? But they for some reason, for the commercial reason, they do that. And I thought that was very offensive. But China is, doing these. I'm I'm struggling, so I'm probably coming back to it. Yes. Sorry.
I'm also very appreciative about what you told us too. Actually, I'm just a student and come to America this year, and my parents back me up in the economics and and also I believe that I have a better situation at your times. I'm very fascinated, just like you told us, the first time you come to America, you're at the bottom of the society and your neighborhood don't like you. as a little girl, how to figure that? Why? What kind of things make you just keep going, not abandon it?
Thank you, thank you. First of all, I think you would identify with the loneliness. I mean, you're far away from home.
Yeah.
Right? Your family have expectations of you.
Exactly.
And that burden, and you're so brave and be so young and be here. I admire that.
Thank you.
And what got me to keep going was, at my time, I had no way out. I can't return to China, you see. That's a difference. And also, I think I wanted to make use of myself. I mean, to prove myself, my own value. I just cannot be a cooked seed, Madam Mouse trash. And I think it was for my own good. I have this determination to carry on. And I think the hardest is the first few years. In living in such an isolation, I think you are going to encounter, I mean, just first year, that will be like 2 or 3 years or 5 years of isolation. Sometimes it could be a terrifying experience. But I think that the hope that you have for yourself. Also, American society, for me, was the ordinary people's kindness. Like the night I was raped and I came out on the street. And in the street, in my socks, the snow in Chicago was this high, and I was hiding behind the booth, behind the telephone. I called an American classmate in the middle of the night. She didn't hesitate. She said, I'm on my way. That was 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Hour later, she pulled in, and she says, what's going on? And she opened the door. I sit in, and then I broke down, and she saw the mark on my neck. She says, oh, my God, you got strangled. Who the hell? Your roommate? And I say, yes. She says, did you call 911? Right. No, why not? Do you want me to call 911 for you? I say, no, I want to know trouble. She says, Anchee Min, what's wrong with you? This is America. He has no right to do that to you. Don't act like it's your fault. I'm driving you to police station. And I say, no, no, no. But these acts make, I'm acknowledged, that I'm valuable. All these things that I think, same thing worked for my daughter. The teacher, everybody in the Chinese community think that you're slow-mo. Play with Lorianne, just be careful, don't make her cry, because she can't count. But the American teacher would say, you're somebody, you're going to make somebody, you're just special, and you will. The holding the hands, So I think that it's the kindness. So it makes me feel, the other day, I think 3 days ago, I was in New Mexico, and in Los Alamos, and I was, by the end of the presentation, I say today is my special day, because the American immigration officer who took my case in 1990 was here. Can you believe that? Wow. And I remember clearly how he was sitting behind his desk.
Oh my gosh.
And examining me. His eyes is like,
yeah.
You watch these movies, it's like his blue eyes just, it's you're a villain, you're gonna shake. I mean, I wasn't a villain, but I was shaking because my fate was in this man's hand. And I tried to to control my trembling. And I forced myself to look at the nameplate that lay in front of the edge of his desk. And it read, James Nesmith, Inspector.
Oh my God.
And 3 weeks later, I got my green card. And Mr. Nesmith called me to congratulate me and notify me about the good news. And I said, how can I thank you enough? And he says, don't thank me. Thank the United States of America. For the next 23 years, I hang on to his words. I so much wanted to be deserving of this man's trust, right, and to be deserving of America's kindness. Right. So eventually I said, ladies and gentlemen, please help me invite Mr. Nesmith up on the stage. I want to give him a hug. I wanted to tell him in person how brilliant he was to grant me the green card. I wanted to make him proud. I wanted to see the smile on his face. And the audience roared. Yeah. So that was a great time.
That's amazing.
Oh.
Thank you. Today, that's all right.
Is that the end?
Yeah, I saw her.
Oh.
You're welcome to keep going, Anchee, but how about a round of applause for our speaker and our moderator?
Thank you. Thank you.
Anchee's incredible memoir, A Cook's Seed, is on sale in the lobby. Get it right now or you will be kicking yourself tomorrow for not getting it. If you buy it right now, she will sign it for you. Thanks so much. Have a great evening.